Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Biden has approved the use of long-range missiles, long-range weapons, U.S. weapons, by Ukraine against military targets inside Russia. Major development. We'll get into it right here on Maverick News tonight. That and today's top stories coming up right after this.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV.
The entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so major developments with the war between Ukraine and Russia. As I indicated, President Biden has now approved the use of longer range missiles from the U.S., supplied by the U.S., against targets, military targets inside Russia. The objective here is to allow Ukraine to target munitions, rocket launchers, targets of that sort inside Russia to prevent missiles from being fired against Ukrainian targets. The idea, of course, take out the Archer instead of trying to intercept every arrow that is fired It has been an ongoing frustration for Ukraine because they have been fighting essentially with one hand tied behind their backs because the Biden administration has been very, very fearful of what Russia might do, what Putin might do if targets were hit inside Russia. But of course, the Kursk incursion has shown that some of these fears may have been misplaced or misdirected. That Putin, even though has drawn a number of red lines, much of it is apparently bluster, or at least that's the way it appears. Now, against the backdrop of that, we have had in the past day, overnight, what is being described as perhaps the largest Russian attack on Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale military invasion of Ukraine, including Russia firing cruise missiles into Ukraine. And of course, those cruise missiles being fired from positions inside Russia, where until tonight, Ukraine has been not allowed to target or retaliate against those positions inside Russia where these missiles and other munitions are being fired from. So now everything has changed. Now, this is something of a game changer. It certainly changes the rules of engagement for Ukraine. But keep in mind that Ukraine has been hitting targets inside Russia for some time anyway, because they've been using drones and even some missiles that they have been developing and building inside Ukraine proper itself. Not from the United States, not from NATO countries. These are weapons that Ukraine has been building on its own in order to target some of these military targets inside Russia. They've been doing that for some time. So even though Biden has now finally, at this point, approved the use of ATACMS missiles and long-range weapons against targets inside Russia, it's not an entirely new development, but it certainly will give Ukraine a lot more. It will allow them to use these weapons in a much more effective way, because it's obviously much better to be taking out the source of missiles being fired than trying to intercept them en route. Now, as part of this massive attack over the past 24 hours, the Russians have fired some cruise missiles at Ukraine, and we have footage here tonight of an F-16 fighter jet, Ukrainian, being used to intercept the target. Here's what it looked like. Now you can see the cruise missile right there, and the F-16 right there coming in to intercept that cruise missile to prevent it from taking out whatever target it had been directed to inside Ukraine. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the full exchange there, so we don't actually get to see the jet shooting down that missile, but that's what these F-16s appear to be. That's what they're being used for, in large part, is for defensive roles within Ukraine to conduct operations just like this, to take out missiles being fired into the country. So that's, as I say, this is a major development tonight. It really is, because this is what Ukraine has been lobbying for. And indeed, it it is something that is also giving rise to alarm from some people who are worried that Vladimir Putin might just retaliate in an escalatory way. So what do we have here as well? We have we've got other video here showing Russian, one of those Russian missiles hitting a target inside Ukraine as part of this massive attack. And what they've been going after is really power generation, or not even generation, but distribution, trying to take out power ahead of course, the cold winter weather setting in, depriving people of the ability to stay warm over the winter, demoralizing the people. Here's the footage of the missile coming in at this location. And so the Russians having some success with their attacks on these targets inside Russia. Their objective here overnight appears to be, as I say, to affect the power grid, disrupt electricity, power in general. That seems to be the primary objective. Now, Putin's latest warning about the use of nuclear weapons is definitely of concern for people. This is what he recently had to say, as distributed through Russian state television. In this case, this is what RT is recycling, Putin's threat to nuke us all, use nuclear weapons if missiles, long-range missiles, are used to target military installations inside Russia. This is not a brand new, as far as I understand, this is not a brand new clip. This is something from some time ago. I think this is probably from about 2 or 3 weeks ago now. It's becoming difficult to keep track of the time. Here he is.
In the updated version of the document, aggression against Russia by any non-nuclear state, but with the support of a nuclear state, is proposed to be considered as their joint attack on Russia. Russia will also consider the possibility of using nuclear weapons when receiving reliable information about a massive launch of means of aerospace attack and their crossing of our state border. This includes strategic and tactical aircraft, as well as cruise missiles and drones, hypersonic and other delivery vehicles. Russia reserves the right to use nuclear weapons in case of aggression, including if the enemy, using conventional weapons, poses a critical threat.
It is.
Well, yeah, it concerns me whenever I hear a world leader threatening to use nuclear weapons. But I don't know. Who's really as I've said on this program before, it's one man, one guy, who's threatening to use nukes, to actually use them, not possess them. One guy has taken it to that level multiple times, has threatened to use nuclear weapons, and has backed up those threats with the movement of nuclear weapons along borders, the Ukrainian border. I find it disturbing. Dictation, authoritarianism, Do as I say or I'll nuke you. I don't like it. It's a threat. And the Russian narrative has been, of course, that, oh, this is all Ukraine. This is Ukraine escalating. Oh, I don't know. This is the approval to use these long-range U.S.-provided weapons comes on the heels of Russia bringing in over 10,000 North Korean troops. That's the escalation. Just yesterday, I told you there are also Cuban mercenaries, but a whole raft of Cuban fighters in there with Russian forces now, as seen on social media. I saw the interviews. Oh, and when asked why they're there fighting, the Cubans said they're there fighting for freedom. It's funny how that word just gets thrown around by all sides. I've asked on this program many times, what does freedom mean to you? What is freedom? How do you define it? What is freedom? I see all through history people using that word to justify why they fight. Communist revolutionaries in particular use that word, raising their fist in the air, fighting for freedom. There's no freedom in authoritarianism or even in collectivism. There's freedom in individualism. Individual rights and freedoms. Why are those Cubans over there fighting? Oh, they're fighting for freedom. So we're told, so they think. Governments filling people's heads with propaganda on all sides. Everybody, it seems, is fighting for freedom. These people are fighting for freedom. Those people are fighting for freedom. And yet, when I've asked people to define it, what does it mean to you? People have a very difficult time answering the question. I do know that when people go to war, their governments, as a matter of course, a matter of routine, as a prelude to any kind of conflict, engage in propaganda and a form of brainwashing in order to convince the masses that the enemy is something less than human. They take steps to dehumanize their enemy. Even during the election in the United States, one side calling the other Nazis and that side calling the others communists. Is it true? There's more to these things than just people wearing symbols. You have to judge people by their actions, and unfortunately, I would say that this kind of propaganda used by governments all through time has a tendency to turn people into the very monsters that we all fight against and vow that we would never become. If you talk to people about, if you talk to them about World War II, if they maybe read the diary of Anne Frank, they would always say that they would never behave that way. But do you remember how people behaved during the pandemic? I certainly do. Boy, you want to talk about Nazi-like behavior there, with neighbors turning in neighbors because they had one or two people over too many to their home during the lockdowns. People were only too happy to turn in their neighbors to the authorities, and worse. And I remember the polls, which indicated a lot of people in Canada were ready and eager and willing and wanted the government to open essentially camps to round people up who hadn't had the thingy and the majiggy in the arm and put them all in camps. There was an actual poll, front page news for a day. Yeah, we were all tested at the time, and we failed. I would say time to question your view of reality if you haven't already, or maybe even if you have, do it again. Because I think what a lot of people are seeing is not necessarily accurate, or the way they're interpreting things is not really accurate, because the information that we've been fed, especially from foreign governments, has skewed our reality. Yeah. Who's the aggressor? Who's the victim? Well, I can see how this whole thing started if you really look beyond the propaganda. And I don't know. I can't imagine, honestly, because I've always lived in Canada. So it's difficult for me to even imagine what it must be like to live day after day after day after day under the threat of shelling and actual shelling and missile attacks and glide bombs. Well, being told you're not allowed, you're only allowed to fight back to a certain point. So I get the justification. I understand the justification for using these weapons against military targets in order to take out rocket launchers so that they can't launch rockets at you. I have no issues with that, frankly, especially at this point. And if that's the justification for nuking the other side, then somebody's got their priorities and their ego to check. Here's what it looked like as the Ukrainian air defense systems sprang into action overnight in response to these missile attacks coming in. So obviously, I mean, I wish, like I think everybody, that this war could come to an end and that resolution satisfactory to all sides could be reached. But as we're seeing, this is escalating. I'm telling you, though, from everything I'm seeing, and, you know, in recent months, the escalation is not coming from NATO. In fact, it's quite the opposite. The restraint has been on the NATO side. They've been very afraid of what Putin might do. And they take what he says seriously, and they do push up against it a little bit, but then they back right off. And it's made it very difficult for Ukraine to engage in this, because they literally have had one arm tied behind their back the entire time, which I think people are not really entirely aware of. That is the reality on the ground and in the air, where even now they only have, I think, 5 trained F-16 pilots. Hardly a game changer, those F-16s, but useful nonetheless in a defensive role, as we just saw. And now we're seeing, not only has North Korea moved 10,000 plus troops into position, especially around the Kursk area, to reinforce the Russian buildup and attempt there to regain and take back areas in the Kursk region. We're now seeing reports that North Korea is preparing to escalate further with Russia against Ukraine. This is much more substantial. which is extremely concerning. Clearly having trouble, manpower problems, in much the same way that Ukraine is. Maybe, I don't know if it's as bad as what Ukraine is experiencing in that regard, but still, they're having trouble. And they're going outside to bring in outside help from another nation, North Korea, into the fold. And this is just ramping things up further. That's the escalation. And where will these negotiations go, if indeed they take place? And it appears that we are ramping up to that. I'm not exactly sure, but one thing is certain now. This war is going to continue to escalate in the days ahead, even the weeks ahead, because we're still many weeks away from Trump actually coming into office and initiating whatever it is that he seems to have planned or thinks he has up his sleeve in order to bring the conflict to resolution. Within 24 hours, he says. Can he do it? I think probably not. It's too complicated, too many players involved, including all these former Soviet states that also feel threatened, I would say at this point, by the situation with Russia. Poland, look at what's just been going on in Moldova with the elections there. And Russian involvement in the electoral process with their information warfare. And outright bribing, according to allegations and interceptions, government allegations against Russia, and interceptions of cash at the airport. And reports on the ground from journalists showing that people were being influenced with bribes as they were coming out of polling stations. With the larger question and issue there being, will Moldova tilt toward the EU and do more trade with the EU and become more integrated with the European Union or not? And it looks like they're choosing the European Union. And Putin doesn't like that. So be it. We'll see. We'll see where all this goes. But right now it's moving in one direction, and that's to broaden the conflict, which overall is not good. At least 5 people were killed overnight in that massive Russian attack on Ukraine. We're looking at about 120 missiles and 90 drones fired into the country. Ukraine says they downed about 140 targets in total. At least 8 Kinzhal hypersonic missiles were used by Russia against Ukraine. And there's Putin saying, if anyone uses hypersonic missiles against us, we'll nuke you. But it's okay for them to use the hypersonic missiles. I've also seen, in the past, accusations of Ukraine using cluster munitions and demonizing that. And yet we also know that there have been multiple instances of Russia using cluster munitions earlier in the conflict, at least, and that confirmed by the United Nations. So there's a high level of hypocrisy in what is being spread in terms of information and accusations. And unfortunately, on both sides, we have far too many people who have been killed, too many soldiers, and far too many civilians. So we hope and we pray and we just hope that there will be peace. But it has to be an acceptable peace, I suppose, doesn't it? We'll see.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media publishing things they simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are Mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Meanwhile, here on the home front in Kanakistan, in the community of Mississauga, we have people calling for jihad.
Jihad, sabiluna! Sabiluna al-jihad! غايتنا الله والجهاد سبيلنا والموت في سبيل الله أسمى أمانينا تكبير تكبير على القدس رايحين شهداء بالملايين على القدس رايحين شهداء بالملايين على القدس رايحين شهداء بالملايين
Yeah. Oh, Canada, what has happened to you? Could be this guy here, Justin Trudeau. Might have something to do with him. Here he is today at APEC in Peru. He was asked about a number of things, including Tulsi Gabbard into her position in U.S. intelligence with no real background in prior real background in intelligence. Maybe that's an asset, I don't know. A lot of people concerned about Tulsi Gabbard. Other people rejoicing. We're going to get something different with Trump, that's for sure. And Trudeau, asked about it, had this to say.
Of course, U.S. nominations are a domestic matter, but they do have implications for Canada. So I want to ask you about one in particular. Tulsi Gabbard, as Director of National Intelligence. This is a person who has a long history of defending Vladimir Putin, of justifying the invasion of Ukraine. Also lots of questions about her personal relationships, travel, financial relationships. Is Canada going to be able to continue to have the intelligence relationship that it has with the United States now, both the bilateral and the Five Eyes relationship, continue to be a consumer of U.S. intelligence and trust what's coming in?
Well, I think these questions you're pointing out are questions that are being asked by an awful lot of people in the United States right now. And they have processes whereby they confirm people, they move forward, they support, they make choices. And I am sure that the American system will continue to demand the right kinds of answers and how they move forward, particularly when it comes to issues of national security. When it comes to keeping Canadians safe, when it comes to keeping Americans safe, our countries can't flinch on that. We have to take these things seriously. And I know Americans take it very seriously, but sometimes political parties do strange things. What comes to mind is the fact that the leader of the official opposition in Canada refuses to get top secret briefings that will allow him to keep his own party and his own members safe. Sometimes political parties make strange choices. And it's the job of citizens to be asking those questions as to why.
Okay, so international community, we're told, is actually looking to Canada for advice in how to deal with the incoming Trump administration, because the Trudeau administration has previously dealt with Trump. But this time around, I don't know. It feels much different, and Trump is surrounded by a lot of different people this time. It's a different ball game. It certainly is. Now, we showed you the protests on the street in Mississauga. In my personal view, that is World War III currently underway, and that's how it takes shape in Canada at the moment. That's a call for jihad. Remember the video from, maybe about a month ago of the protesters standing in front of I believe it was a library in Vancouver, a sizable crowd chanting "Death to Canada"? All of these things, including the clashes recently between Khalistani separatists and Sikh Khalistani separatists from India and Hindus, and the attack on the Hindu temple, which led to counter-protests by the Hindus. This sort of war that's almost evolving within the country between these two groups has a lot of people questioning where we're going with multiculturalism, immigration. Pierre Poilievre, over the weekend, this was actually, I think, Friday, radio interview. I believe this was out in Vancouver. Leader of the official opposition, addressing exactly this issue, which was, I would say, probably ended up being the number one issue for, that propelled Trump to electoral victory. And now Pierre Poilievre also tapping into this issue to address public concerns about it. And I totally get it.
Let's not get distracted. The problems we have in immigration happened under Justin Trudeau before this election. And President Trump has not even taken office yet. And the chaos in our immigration system has happened mostly in the last 3.5 years when President Biden was in power. So let's not turn our gaze away from the source of the problem, which is Justin Trudeau, who increased our population growth by 300% in a matter of a couple of years, who, by his admission, this isn't me, allowed massive fraud in international students, temporary foreign workers, and the refugee system. By his own admission, the liberal immigration policies have caused massive housing, job, and healthcare shortages. And now he's basically denouncing his entire immigration policy and expecting us to believe that he can fix the problems that he caused. This rampant incompetence has caused human misery, both for newcomers and for multi-generational Canadians like you and I. The bottom line is we have to fix our immigration, get back to the best system in the world, the one that brought my wife here as a refugee legally and lawfully, the one that brought so many people here to pursue the Canadian promise. And we definitely need more frontline border guards. We need to secure Roxham Road and other points of entry. We have to make it clear that it is not allowed for people to just walk across our borders. And we have to look at legislative changes if necessary to prevent people from abusing our system. It is possible to be a refugee to the United States. It's not possible to be a refugee from the United States. We vacation there. It's not, it's not a dictatorship. It's not a dangerous country that you need to flee from.
And here's Trudeau with a new video today on the issue of immigration. Let's listen in.
Immigration. Let's talk about it. In the last 2 years, our population's grown really fast, like baby boom fast. And increasingly, bad actors like fake colleges and big chain corporations have been exploiting our immigration system for their own interests. So we're doing something major. We're reducing the numbers of immigrants that will come to Canada for the next 3 years. Today, I'm going to let you in on what happened, where we made some mistakes, and why we're taking this big turn. Immigration. Let's talk about it.
And no details. Not in this video. We'll learn, well, we know kind of where he's going with it. He's already announced that he is, well, they're saying they're going to scale back the numbers by about 100,000 a year. The target has been about 500,000 annually. And in, I think, every year they've exceeded their target, like their cap. And I think at least one of those years, they pretty much doubled that. I think we brought in close to 1 million new people. The system not really able to handle it. We don't have enough housing. That's affected housing prices because you've increased demand so much. And this is what's giving rise to so much destabilization, concern among the public, and inflation in all things, and stress, cracks forming in our social services, whether it's our education system or our healthcare system. You go down the line, you go down the list of social services, everything is under stress. And a lot of people are fed up because this hasn't been handled well. And Poilievre is right. Trudeau is now coming out and basically admitting that his policies have been a failure, that they have not really worked. And now we're all paying the price for it. And now it looks like things could, we could find ourselves, our system could be under immense additional stress, because with Trump now coming into power and talking about these deportations, or the plan to deport anywhere from 1 million to maybe even as many as 20 million people, you have a lot of people in the United States who are down there, not really legally, who are looking for a place to go. And I think they have their eye on Canada. Officials here in Canada are aware of that. We've talked about this on the program. And as a result, Canada could actually be flooded with more immigrants coming from the United States, coming up this way, as they try to escape deportation at the hands of a Trump administration. I've said before, I don't really know how this is going to go down. I don't know how I don't think we've seen anything on this scale, certainly not in North America, and certainly not from an American government. So if this goes down the way that it's just like straight up deportations on that level, the optics are not going to be good internationally. They're not even going to be good domestically. It will lead to a lot of unrest, conflict, possibly even violence. I certainly hope not. But this is unprecedented. I don't know. And it's going to have an impact right here in Canada as well. It already is. What the exact impact is going to, I don't know. But I'm concerned because I can see a number of scenarios unfolding as a result of all of this. And this is because, previous governments have not handled immigration properly or responsibly, and it has led to problems on many levels in many different ways. And so now it's like I've said, I think it's like trying to unscramble an egg. And as a result, you've just got, well, we are experiencing World War III. We've seen these protests, and then today, I took note of this video clip from Kareem Assad involving Rebel News. Ezra Levant was out at a demonstration with David Menzies. And the reason I'm taking note of this is because, again, it is addressing not just the immigration issue, but these protests, but also what is a journalist and what rights should just even citizens have in terms of freedom of movement. What about freedom of speech? Where does this leave journalists as police are out there trying to keep the peace? This was a very interesting exchange that I saw take place. This clip here is Ezra Levant, who had previously been speaking with police at this demonstration, who essentially had previously warned him that if they as journalists, any of these Rebel News reporters at this protest were to go over and try to even interview the pro-Hamas or pro-Palestinian protesters, that they would, as journalists, be arrested. And yet, how are you supposed to do your job as a journalist if you're not allowed to go and talk to people? Now, police may view these journalists as not journalists, but provocateurs, but I'm not sure that that's accurate. And indeed, I do have an issue with people who call themselves journalists who consistently, or even on one occasion, but if they go in and they intentionally provoke and become part of the protest themselves, then yes, then you're maybe crossing a line. But where is that line? Things get murky. These are very complex questions that we are grappling with at a time when free speech itself is under assault through censorship. And yet there's also the incredibly strong pushback right now to assert free speech rights, even in terms of absolutism, through platforms like Twitter, now known as X, and Elon Musk, and InfoWars, and the lawsuits leveled against them, and accusations of foreign interference and influence within certain media organizations. It's very, very complicated and worrisome, and it is all part of World War III playing out right now, because the information war is integral to everything happening in this global conflict that has actually reached our shores, is playing out on the streets, on the campuses, within our communities, right here, right now. And the future of journalism, the future of free speech, the future of our rights, it's all a big question mark right now. And people need to, I think, be very, very careful about what they do, how they respond. And I would challenge everyone out there to do more to become more media literate, so that you understand social media, you understand the dynamics of media today, the new realities and challenges that we all face with regard to media, journalism. What is a journalist? What versus what is an activist? We can explore all of this in greater detail in the days and weeks and months ahead. We'll have to. This will be part of our objective, our mandate here, is to address these issues here on Maverick News. This is our wheelhouse, if you will. And so too is it for Rebel News, and even Kareem Assad, who, as a journalist, covered these journalists being essentially threatened with arrest by police for trying to do their jobs at this protest. And I think what Ezra Levant does here is frankly brilliant, because he really puts police on notice, saying, if you arrest any of us who are here just trying to practice journalism, I will sue you and hold you accountable for the violation of our charter rights. Here's Ezra Levant, and listen, this is brilliant, in my view, really, truly brilliant.
So my first piece of advice is don't get too close.
He's
Stay
giving
about
advice
this
to his
far
reporter,
away.
David
So
Menzies.
Don't get right up in their grill, but stay about this far away, and with your mic go like that. But keep a couple of feet of distance so there's no excuse for police to come down on you like
Sure.
a brick. So we are here to do journalism, not to pick a fight.
Right.
We're here to assert our rights to do
Right.
journalism.
Right.
We're not here to be part of the protest.
Exactly.
We're here to report on the protest.
Yes.
He may be arrested. David has been arrested 5 times this year, and I should tell you, every single time the charges have been thrown out or dropped, which shows that it's just bullshit to sweep them off the streets. If that happens again today, I've got to tell you, Officer Lamb and Officer Kerr and the rest of you, we're going to sue every one of you for violating our charter rights and and I am as serious as a heart attack right now. So don't do it. Don't arrest us. Do your job. Stay true to your oath. If there's someone who's threatening us, arrest them. Don't say the path of least resistance is to sweep David Menzies off the street. So that's what we're here to do. Everyone on the rebel side of things, feel free to wear a hat. Officers, we have our press passes. You can also tell us by our trademark Panama hats. Afterwards, if you want one for your collection, I'm happy to give you one. You'll have, okay, I'll give you one afterwards.
See, that's brilliant because he clearly states what the intent is. He states that they are there to practice journalism. He tells the officers exactly what they're there for, how they're going to conduct themselves, and then makes it clear that you'll have no reason to arrest us because we're not there to provoke. We are only there to practice journalism. That is fair, and that is professional. Those are all very clear guidelines and fall in line with, I think, ethical professional behavior for a journalist. Now, Rebel News obviously has its political slant, its own worldview collectively within the organization, and then they apply that to their reports, and you can see that there is a certain bias there, as I think every news organization does. You have a certain slant, but nevertheless, they are giving an opportunity to people, I think, on both sides to say what they want to say. That's what a journalist is supposed to do. How can you facilitate dialogue if you don't talk to people on both or all sides? That's all that Ezra Levant was asserting there, and I think that what he did was brilliant because it really sets things up in a way that if there is an arrest, then all of that video, the information can all be presented in court as evidence, which would only serve to assist the defendant, in this case a journalist who might be arrested, in the court proceedings. So it's smart, very, very smart. This is what we're here for, officer. This is what we're doing. Record it, live stream it, make it public. This is what we are doing, and this is how we are going to be doing it. And then, of course, if things don't go down the way that you said, then that could also be used against you. But as long as you stay within the guardrails and stay in your lane, I think you're okay. And you should be okay. But we have also seen that the law has not been applied evenly and without bias. He's quite right when he says that police, generally speaking, will take the path of least resistance in order to keep the peace. But that's not just their only responsibility as law enforcement. It's not just to keep the peace, it's to apply the law evenly. And if laws are broken and it's appropriate to lay charges, then those decisions to lay charges, make arrests, that should be done in an impartial way. It hasn't always been done that way. In fact, I think the police react, and out of fear most often. If they feel that there's going to be a lot of resistance, if they're afraid that for their safety, if they're feeling threatened, or they feel that there's maybe violence that might come out of something, they're more inclined to just leave certain groups of people alone because there's strength in numbers, even if those people who are out in numbers are doing illegal things. It's unfortunate, but it's true. The expression of force, aggression, threats of any kind, or even just the threatening presence of a dominating group can be enough to act as a shield for people who are engaging in unlawful or illegal protest activity, which at that point, in some cases, goes beyond protest. Brilliant move by Ezra Levant. just thought I'd bring that up, showcase it, because these questions about what a journalist, what a true journalist is, what journalism is, when we cross the line, what justifies the arrest of someone who is out there claiming to be or is a journalist. Like, when is an arrest justified? And as you've seen, in the 5 instances where David Menzies has been arrested, the cases have been thrown out.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So not only did Joe Biden give Ukraine permission to use these long-range weapons inside Russia, he went on a trip. He went down to the Amazon rainforest today. Yeah. The first sitting president to visit the Amazon rainforest. And he went down there to recommit protecting the rainforests. He says trees breathe carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and they need to be protected. He says it's no secret that he's leaving office, of course. And he wants to leave his successor and his country the strong foundation to build on if they choose to do so. The tools to fight climate change. So, well, I've been focused primarily on the concerns surrounding the use of the long-range weapons. This is what other people are really clued in on, and this is the thing that Biden apparently thinks is the most important today, because this is what he focused his news conference on today during this trip to the Amazon rainforest. Let's tune in, shall we? Here we go. Hang on. There we go.
Thanks for all being here. Back in the late 80s, Chico Mendes, a Brazilian rubber tapper, who turned environmental activist, said the following, and I quote, "At first I thought I was fighting to save rubber trees. Then I thought I was fighting to save the Amazon rainforest. Now I realize I was fighting for humanity." At the time, I was a United States Senator, working with a great Republican senator named Dick Lugar from Indiana to enact a new law. The United States would relieve other countries of debts owed to us if they commit to protecting their own forest. These debt for nature swaps have since protected nearly 70 million acres of forest worldwide. And today, I'm proud to be here, the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Amazon rainforest to recommit to protecting the rainforest like this one. Most powerful solutions we have to fight climate change is all around us. The world's forests. Trees breathe carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And yet each minute, the world is chopping down the equivalent of 10 soccer fields worth of forest each minute. That's why we've been a leader internationally in the fight to end and reverse deforestation by 2030. That's why we've led by example at home, conserving an area of the U.S. lands and waters larger than the state of the nation of Uruguay. We've done it by fighting for tribal partners, lifting them up, indigenous communities, and the most impacted by deforestation and climate change. Today's announcement will support indigenous communities to do the same here in the Amazon. We all know there's much more we can do and must do at home and abroad. That's why today I issued an official proclamation to support the conservation of nature around the world. Because the fight to protect our planet is literally a fight for humanity, for generations to come. It may be the only existential threat to all our nations and to all humanity that exists. With today's proclamation, I'm proud to announce, first, the United States Development Finance Corporation will mobilize hundreds of millions of dollars in partnership with a Brazilian company to reforest the Amazon. Second, we're launching a Brazil Restoration and Bioeconomy Finance Coalition to mobilize at least $10 billion by 2030 to restore and protect 20,000 square miles of land. And third, I'm announcing an additional $50 million to the Amazon Fund that's already given $50 million. Fourth, we'll provide the funding to help launch President Lula's important new initiative, the Tropical Forest Forever Fund. For international conservation, private capital. The fight against climate change has been a defining cause of my presidency. My administration first rejoined the Paris Agreement on climate change. We've launched a 150-nation-strong global methane pledge. We delivered a record climate financing to developing countries. We pledged that we would deliver $11 billion per year by 2024. I'm pleased to announce today that we not only kept that promise, we've surpassed it. Back home, I signed the most significant climate change law in history, a law that positions us to cut carbon emissions in half by 2030. This generated $450 billion in new clean energy investments. And that's created hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs and a manufacturing boom as well. Folks, we don't have to choose between the environment and the economy. We can do both. We've proven it back home. It's no secret that I'm leaving office in January. I will leave my successor and my country in a strong foundation to build on if they choose to do so. It's true, some may seek to deny or delay the clean energy revolution that's underway in America. But nobody can reverse it. Nobody. Not when so many people, regardless of party or politics, are enjoying its benefits. Not when countries around the world are harnessing the clean energy revolution to pull ahead themselves. The question now is, which government will stand in the way and which will seize the enormous economic opportunity? Let me close with this. It's often said that the Amazon is the lungs of the world. The Amazon is the lungs of the world. But in my view, our forests and national wonders are the heart and soul of the world. They unite us. They inspire us. They make us proud of our countries and heritage. A bridge to the past and to our future. A birthright we pass down from generation to generation. The Amazon rainforest was built up over 50 million years 50 million years. History is literally watching us now. So let's preserve this secret place for our time and forever, for the benefit of all humanity. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
He's a fighter. He's a survivor. President Trump, defiant, strong. He is determined to make America great again. Pay tribute to the 45th President of the United States with this.
Sorry, folks, we seem to be having a little bit of a technical problem. Let me see if I can address that here.
Greetings, brave Maverick.
Yeah, very strange, not running. These videos not running, and I don't know why. Makes no sense. In any event, I'm back, so... Okay. Liquefied bodies. Bizarre. At least it feels bizarre, but it's real, it's happening. Liquefied bodies. Let me see if I can find this for you. Here it is. Texas Medical School has been ordered to stop liquefying bodies after using them for training purposes. So this is actually, I have to give credit for this to NBC News. It's part of a series of articles, reports, titled Dealing with the Dead. It's been an investigative series looking into the use of unclaimed bodies for medical research, and state regulators in Texas have ordered this medical school to stop immediately liquefying bodies after using them for training and research. So they've been sent a cease and desist order, and I guess what the process being used is it's called alkaline hydrolysis. Now, I have been aware of this for some time, and I've seen some, shall I say, conspiracy-driven reports that have suggested some pretty bizarre things in association with this process. It is a real thing, and it is being done. And what alkaline hydrolysis is it's sort of known as water cremation. It's viewed by some as an eco-friendly alternative to traditional cremation. It uses water, chemicals, and heat, and that process rapidly breaks down a body, leaving only a liquid behind that essentially you pour it down the drain. And then you also are left with a dry, small accumulation of ashes, and those can then be given to relatives. Now, in this case, we're talking about bodies that have been unclaimed, and that's why they end up at the university, and they're used for medical research. But this practice of liquefying the bodies is not authorized under Texas state law, and it apparently constitutes a violation of standards which are there to govern the lawful disposal of human remains. So the university could face fines if they continue to engage in this kind of practice. It seems very dark, strange, but it's a real thing and it is happening. And I just thought I'd mention it tonight because I am aware of some of the reports out there that have been, frankly, pretty over the top and have been really designed to scare people through sensationalism related to this story. And it doesn't take much with a story like this that is true to then take that nugget of truth and then spin conspiracies around it that really lead people down rabbit holes. That's what's really going on. Unclaimed bodies, and instead of sending them out for cremation in the traditional way, which is to burn the bodies, leaving behind only ashes, they're using a process to liquefy them because it's more economical. And there are documents that are on file at the university indicating that that is one of the options that they've been looking at and I guess even using to some degree there in order to dispose of the bodies because it's less expensive, but not approved in the state of Texas, although I think there are some states that do allow that practice to take place. Strange story, but sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. I find it pretty creepy, but I just have a whole thing with death anyway myself personally, so that's why to me it's kind of creepy. Now, back to politics here. And Tbilisi, Georgia, where the streets have become the stage for political expression over the past 24 hours. The Georgian capital has seen a surge in protests following the recent parliamentary elections there, the opposition refusing to accept the results that have handed the ruling Georgian Dream Party a victory with approximately 53.93% of the vote. They've mobilized thousands of people. They claim widespread electoral fraud and assert that these results do not reflect the true will of the Georgian people. I have video ready to share with you, showing you the scale, the size, the scope, the intensity of these protests on the streets in Georgia. This is what it looks like. We'll take the music off and just show you the crowd. A lot of people not happy. So reports indicate that riot police have been deployed to monitor the situation, ensuring peace as tensions do remain high down there. And earlier today, an opposition member made headlines by throwing paint at the head of the Central Election Commission during the announcement of the validated election results, symbolizing their rejection of what they call an illegitimate process. In a related development, Tbilisi State University has canceled classes for Monday, allowing students and faculty to join or support the protests. Demonstrators have set up tents near the university, signaling their intent to continue their action indefinitely until the demands are met. Now, internationally, various countries are watching closely. The European Union, along with other Western leaders, have called for a thorough investigation into the alleged electoral irregularities. Meanwhile, the ruling party insists the election was conducted fairly and they are prepared to govern with the mandate they claim to have received. So these protests are not just about the numbers in the ballot box, they're about the future direction of Georgia. Will it lean towards Europe, or will it pivot towards its historical ties with Russia? That's the question at the heart of these demonstrations. And isn't it interesting, where Russia is concerned, we have unrest, we have questions surrounding electoral process integrity. So as this political drama unfolds, we'll keep you updated right here on Maverick News. For now, though, Tbilisi, Georgia, it is a volatile situation. And again, unstable. Wherever the question of which way are they going to go, European Union or Russia? We're seeing unrest, questions about electoral integrity. There's a theme here, isn't there? Yeah, over and over again. Yeah. Now, folks, if you'd like to support the program, what we do here, you can do that by donating at freedomreporters.com. Anybody that donates $10 or more, you'll get a copy of the 10-song Free Dog album. I will send you a download of that. $30 or more, and you can have a t-shirt, one of the Trump Fight t-shirts, or Fighting for Freedom t-shirts, or you can have the Maverick News t-shirt. They're all in black. Just tell me what size you need when you make the donation. Just send a little note in the comments section at freedomreporters.com. It takes you to the PayPal donation page. You can also go to maverickdonations.com. That's the Give, Send, Go. 45 or more, and I can send you a polo shirt. 60 or more, and I will send you a Maverick News hoodie or a button-up shirt with a Maverick News embroidered logo. I believe we have long sleeve and short sleeve available, so whatever you would like, just send me a note and I'll get you set up. If you have questions, you can just make the donation and I'll answer any questions you have and get you whatever kind of garment you would like from our Maverick News collection. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. We really need the support that way. That doesn't cost you a penny. And if you can give us a big thumbs up on both the YouTube and Rumble channels, that would certainly be helpful as well. And with that, that kind of gets us to the end of tonight's broadcast. A slightly abbreviated Maverick News program. Tonight, Sunday, November 17th, 2024. And I would say that we keep inching toward World War III, but we are, indeed, already engaged. Whether people care to admit it or not, the only thing is that it continues to escalate, and let's pray that it doesn't escalate to a point of a full-blown kinetic war that spreads beyond the locations where we're already experiencing that. And let's hope and pray for peace. God bless everybody. Love you all. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.